Okay guys, found a nice seat here under a palm tree at this beach. I'm looking out at the waves of Lake Pontchartrain. Pretty nice. So this video is about information. I want to explain to y'all what information is, and I want to distinguish it from what we call knowledge. So most people think of anything we come to know as information, but there was a guy in the 1940s named Claude Shannon who was working for Bell Labs, and he was trying to design ways to transmit telephone conversations over wires. And he discovered that if you thought of information as alphabets, as discrete units like letters, A, B, and C, you found that it was made out of interchangeable parts. So there's no A and a half, there's no A and 3/4. There's either A or B, or C or D, or however many letters are in the alphabet. So this insight led to the transformation that we call the information age, because we discovered that if we reduce everything to just a 2-letter alphabet, that information could be corrected for errors. So the reason I'm telling you this is that the beginning of that story is actually way back in the human past, at the beginning of literacy. So making figures external to our body is much of the way that we store knowledge. So knowledge, as I showed you in the past video, is something like a pattern that impresses itself onto something else. So if I make a pattern here in the sand, I might even make a drawing. That pattern can persist and someone can copy it. But unless it's made out of an alphabet, they can't correct that message back to perfection. So when we designed the alphabet for the first time in Sumeria, we discovered that those messages could be received and used as tools. And at first they were just counting piles of grain or units of gold dinars or whatever the Sumerian kings wanted to count and transmit knowledge about. But it's the alphabetical nature of it that made it very different from other forms of knowledge. Being able to store alphabets outside the body was something biologically new. It turns out much later in the 20th century we discovered that knowledge, the knowledge of how to build an organism, is alphabetical as well. So there are 4 letters in the alphabet of the genetic code: A, G, T, and C. Those are base pairs, amino acids, that are copied by RNA, proteins, etc., to make new cells and to respond to problems that the cell might encounter. But there's no, just like the literate alphabet, there's no A and a half, there's no T and a half, there's no G and a half, there's no C and a half, there's only units. So this is the way that knowledge, which is otherwise just patterns of impact, one sort of matter impacting another and showing it something. If it gets put into an alphabet, it can be stored outside the body and picked up by something later and used to solve a problem. So the reason why the human species was the first to invent alphabets has to do with this sandy soil I'm sitting on right now. So the human species is not the most creative species on Earth. But we have evolved to hunt by sight. So when humans trail animals in an arid environment, we look on the ground for prints, for tracks. We hunt by sight. We don't have very good smell, but we've evolved to stand upright and look. And when we look at those prints on the ground, even far back 1 million years ago in human history, we're telling a story. We're taking external knowledge and using it. And it's quite easy to begin making prints ourselves that tell a story once you realize that sight-based hunters are communicating. So that fluke, the fact that we can read footprints in the sand, turns out to be the reason why humans have developed the whole world.